Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. I am China Urban Fox and we're going to do a sequel to my first video of this series last week where I sat at the ring and talked about whether coming to China was a political statement or not. But today I want to focus on something a bit different. We all know what's going on in the Middle East at the moment, and I want to talk about the first ripple effects that it's having here in China. And that is the effect on fuel prices. Now behind me is one of the two major petrol station chains you can find in China. This one is called PetroChina, and the other big one you can find out and about is Sinopec. Now I'm not quite sure what the exact difference between them is, apart from selling oil products of course, but my understanding is from some videos I've seen on the internet, PetroChina is more involved with domestically produced oil, whereas Sinopec sells more imported oil and is also involved more with petrochemicals. But anyway, at the moment, I don't think a lot of people here have been talking about it. No, at least not in my circles or in the neighbourhood or anything like that. So we just see what we hear on social media at the moment. I would say that people haven't really been going on about international law or anything like that. I suppose because we've been here so many times before. I mean, we've seen what's happened in Lebanon and Libya, Iraq, so on and so forth. So really, I get the feeling that people here just can't really be bothered to harp on now about international law. At this stage, it's kind of more the law of the jungle, and what happens, happens. So it's more a question of what people do about it. But anyway, there's going to be a slight price hike this evening, and in anticipation of that, I had seen a lot of videos on social media about panic buying. So, every time something like this happens, you do find a lot of this on WeChat videos and the like. So, you see these big queues of vehicles waiting to fill their tanks. It's impossible to say when exactly it was filmed. And then we have all of this, dramatic messaging and the background music and all that. And it kind of gives you the impression that like a big, crisis is going on at the moment. And looking behind me at the moment, I mean, it looks fairly quiet. I mean, there was many people queuing up for the car wash as they are the pumps. I'll also say as well, I'm on a little hillock overlooking the station, so I don't have actually permission to film them, but it's my hope that they're not going to notice and come and bother us or anything like that. And the video itself today isn't about this station in particular. Okay, so you might be interested to know that prices for fuel here in China is not really set by these stations themselves. There's a national standard, and that is normally determined by an organization in Beijing called the Development and Reform Commission, and they look at the global situation and fluctuations in oil prices, and if it goes down or if it goes up, they make adjustments to the fuel prices accordingly. But anyway, the war down there in the Middle East at the moment is in its 7th or 8th day, and I suppose some of the ripples are starting to come now. My understanding is that from midnight tonight, the price is going to go up by 0.59 yuan, so coming up to 6 jiao if you like, and that's going to bring the price of grade 95 fuel up to 8 yuan, over 8 yuan to 8.09 yuan, at least in stations here in Chongqing from what I've researched. Over the years, there have been a lot of price fluctuations. In my memory, I think the cheapest it's ever been is about 5 yuan, and I remember that was kind of around early 2020. And then during the COVID years, I think at the most expensive point, it was up to it was over 9, but under 10 yuan per litre. So, fairly expensive. But I think, over the past year, it's been fairly stable. It's been hovering between 7 and 8 yuan per litre. And 8.09 yuan is about 1.17 US dollars, based on the conversion rate today at the moment. So my main point of concern then is not really about the price hike this evening. It's nothing major at the moment. If you fill your tank from virtually empty to full, maybe it'll cost you another extra 20 yuan or something like that. So, it's considerable. It's 2 or 3 days ago, I filled in my tank up as well. I kind of timed it nicely, so it'll do me for the next 2 weeks at least. But the main point of concern is, where is this going in the future? Because we saw a little, we saw a bit of a fight, didn't we, between the US, Israel and Iran around the mid part of last year. But, like we've seen in the past, it kind of flared up. We had an exchange of missiles and rockets, and then things seemed to calm down. So I remember during that time in China, the prices went up a little bit, but then once everything calmed down, they came to a truce. Then the prices went back down under 80 Yuan per litre. But really, from what I understand here based in China, it's kind of reached that point of no return. So if you've assassinated the leaders of Iran, a Shia Muslim population, they're going to fight to the death, aren't they? I think, once you've done that, and obviously you've bombed oil refineries and a lot of their infrastructure, it's really reached the point of no return. So, if things start to get too hot, if Israel and the US say, okay, let's calm things down a little bit, I just don't think that's going to work this time. It's just not going to cut. So, it's impossible for me to say. I mean, I'm not a big geopolitical analyst or anything, but from the way I understand it, at the moment they're using a lot of their cheap drones just to deplete a lot of these really expensive interceptor missiles, such as Iron Dome in Israel and the THAAD system, which is used by the American military based in the Gulf states. And I did learn quite a lot about them in the past through Democracy Now! I remember a really good interview I saw on Democracy Now! Maybe he was Professor Theodore Podolsky. I might have his name wrong, it's been quite a long time now. And he was talking about the Israeli Iron Dome and how the miss rate is really high, but the cost of those missiles is really high. And with the THAAD missiles as well, I mean, I heard figures anywhere from $1 million to $12 million per missile. So you can imagine, I mean, they are going to have very finite reserves of those. So it seems a good tactic for Iran just to fire these drones at them, which are really cheap, about $35,000 to $50,000 each. And then once they've worked through all of these expensive interceptor missiles, then I think that's when they're going to see the good stuff coming out of Iran. So how do I see this escalating? Well, I think, once these interceptile missiles have been exhausted and there isn't anything in the way of, apologies, I'm going to cut it, but anything in the way of, reparations, maybe trillions of US dollars for Iran, this is going to continue. And eventually, because the oil refineries in the Gulf states are so exposed, they're just out there in the flat desert, I think eventually they are going to get hit. And by that point, it's not going to matter whether the Strait of Hormuz is closed or not. There's just going to be nothing coming out of those Gulf states. And I did hear another speech from Starmer back home in the UK, and he was bleating on about Iran is attacking all of these innocent Gulf states. These are not parties to the war, except that they have all of these foreign hostile military bases based in their territory. And even if attacks on Iran are being launched from those bases at the moment, they might have, I don't know, I don't have any facts on that. But at the very least, they're going to be involved in logistics, stockpiling, intelligence gathering, reconnaissance and the like. So definitely these Gulf states are not innocent parties in this. And so I definitely see that happening. Eventually, these refineries are going to get hit, and then at some point down the line, when other countries in East Asia, like China, Korea, Japan, start running out of their stockpiles of oil, then we're really going to see prices increase. And I'm sure they'll be thinking at the moment where they're going to find alternate sources of oil to cover the shortfall. I think over the next couple of months, we're going to see increased price hikes here at petrol stations here in China. So that's one thing I'm going to be following here for you guys. And then the second major thing is I think eventually, the UK, France, are probably going to get involved in that. And you know, if Iran wants to fall, the next question is, you know, who is next on the list? You know, could it be China or Russia? Could it be North Korea or Cuba? On my community tab on YouTube, I did put out a little poll, and a lot of people were pointing towards Cuba, but a few to China as well. But I think now they've worked through a lot of these countries that were originally named in the Project for a New American Century. This is going back a long way, almost back to the year 2000 when the Bush Jr. administration came in. They named 7 countries, didn't they? It was kind of like Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Afghanistan, Sudan, Libya, and then finally Iran. And there's no surprise then that, you know, this is happening now in the Middle East. We've been waiting for this a very, very long time. So Israel and the US have definitely been waiting and preparing for this moment. And I'm sure Iran definitely has a contingency plan already and polished. So I don't think this is going to be over quickly. I think this is going to escalate, not over weeks, maybe months, even years. It could turn into a big quagmire, even worse than the Vietnam War in the 1960s. Because I suppose with Vietnam in the 1960s, you didn't really have any direct US satellite states around it or US-based assets. But here we have the GCC, don't we? The Gulf Cooperation Council states, the Qatar's, Bahrain's, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait and the like. So definitely, if the petrodollar is hit that way, that is going to have some major effects on the global economy, and these states maybe in the future won't be able to prop up the Ponzi scheme that is the American stock market and also the AI bubble at the moment. Okay, so I do think it's ultimately in the interests of China and Russia to keep the situation going, maybe support Iran in the background, especially if the UK and France becomes involved, and that will be a really good pretext for them to support Iran more directly, although under the radar as well. I mean, I suppose they don't want to get into direct conflict with other powers at this moment in time. And coming back to Starmer, again, I saw his message bleating how the Gulf states are innocent parties. Well, we know that's a complete lie, because didn't we see that Belarus was sanctioned as part of the Ukraine-Russia war as well? And even though Belarus hasn't attacked the Ukraine itself, I know it has used its territory has been used a lot to station like Russian military equipment and attacks. So just based on that alone, since they sanctioned Belarus for that, it basically just shows what a liar, you know, a lot of these Western leaders are. Anyway, I hope I haven't rambled on too much in this video. This is only my second attempt at commentary like this. This is kind of a new area of exploration for me, so I promise I will get better over time. So just before I finish, just a quick response to a couple of trolls. I do know my latest video at Chongqing East Railway Station caused a bit of excitement, because at the moment it's the world's biggest station in terms of floor space, but when I went there it was almost completely deserted, and I did have a lot of comments saying, well, you know, that's to be expected because a lot of the surrounding infrastructure hasn't been built yet, and we're still waiting for the Chongqing-Xiamen high-speed rail line to be completed. And that is absolutely true, and maybe I should have said that in that video. But at the same time, no, I'm keeping an open mind on this one. I'm going to reserve judgment. So for some of the trolls on there who are saying, no, I chose a bad time, I chose a really quiet time to visit that station and film that video, which I didn't. I went there on the 7th day of the New Year, of the Chinese New Year travel rush. It should have been a busy time, and it certainly was at Chongqing North and Chongqing West. But if you have a time that you want me to go again, maybe I can go there when I'm free and make another video for you. But no matter whether you comment in support or to refute what I say, I'm still at the moment, you know, very appreciative for the comments and the attention, no matter what. And we will follow that station as things develop over the next couple of years. But anyway, from here in Yubei district, thank you for watching this video. Do let me know what you think in the comment section. Subscribe to me if you're willing to do so. And if you have any requests for future videos, things you want to know, right here on the ground in China, just leave a message in the comments, okay? So from here, thanks for watching, and I will see you again for the next one.